Yeah, Tim, just a few more days till the movie comes out.
Oh, I'm excited, man. I'm super excited. The first platform is going to be Amazon Prime, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. Yep, it'll be out in Prime.
See what all the hype is about, man. We've gotten several festival taps and awards so far with this.
Just to reemphasize, so American Expendables out technically I think August 12th midnight, but realistically August 13th, Prime, and then Fandango, and then I think Dish Network. Yeah, so if you want to check it out, I think it's going to be cheap. I think it's going to be like 4.99. So anyone wants to check out a cool doc.
Yeah. Where can you get a movie for $5 these days? You
Yeah,
know,
brand
usually
new.
you get like Second Mortgage, you know?
Oh man, I don't know how many films that you and I have collaborated on. It, you know, a dozen
Least
or
double digits now. Least
yeah.
double digits.
Yeah, so American Expendables, it has a cool interview with Cynthia Rothrock and James Richardson. It has Tim Kulig in it. It has Lloyd Kaufman from Troma, John Brennan from The Last Drive-In. Really, the doc is about the martial arts craze in the direct-to-video era,
Mhm.
and all these B-movie action stars, some of which sort of I would say didn't get enough attention. Do you remember some of the titles you were renting growing up there?
Yeah, absolutely. I a lot of Rucker Hauer movies, you know,
Yep.
uh, and honestly, they were such a benign title from one movie to the next that I don't remember the exact names,
Like
but
Split Second, Blind Fury,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Blind Fury was one of my favorites. There was one where he like I thought it was fascinating because he had uh, like basically just a bedroom in a freaking warehouse, and he drove his car into an elevator and like drove into his living room. I
yeah.
forget which one that was, but
Split
that
Second, yeah,
that oh
that's
that was Split Second. Okay, okay, yeah, that one was a
great.
lot of fun too.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Well, the premise was super cool. Like the premise was a flooded, I think it was in London. It was a flooded London. So like even streets that people could drive on, there was like a good foot of water, foot or two of water. So it was a pretty cool premise.
And he was going strong way into the end of his career. I mean, Hobo with a Shotgun was a great like tail end, you know,
Oh, yeah.
ultra horror type of movie that he was in.
So
Um,
he was so good.
so But the problem is that what we discovered with this movie, and you go and watch it, you'll see all the details of it. But we discovered that it's really where do you find these now? Where do you find them? This
Yeah, the,
was
the low budget, low to no budget um action film in the United States is pretty rare.
mhm.
And it's funny, I just watched a movie called Deadbeat by Dawn, and Jim Von Weber, I think, is the director, and it was $10,000 budget back in 1989.
Mm,
And I mean, that's about 25 grand in today's money.
mhm.
Would explain, I mean, it's an incredible movie for 10 grand. It's and it gets better the longer it goes, but it's basically just these gangs.
Yeah,
It's kind of like a Warriors kind of a thing. Um, but super cool. But yeah, that there's no reason why we shouldn't have that. I mean, that was basically this guy, just a really, really good director and producer, got these group of people together, and yeah, there was there was like one car chase at the end. There was a lot of good blood effects and practical horror effects. Uh,
yeah.
but he was able to pull this thing off. So like, why don't we have that?
The problem is that I think ultimately is that it used to be you could sell something like that to a distributor and make so many dollars a copy with that distributor and it's physical media. Now that that's not a thing, the streaming sites are just inundated with not only the historical, big conglomeration of all the movies that are out there, but it just gets lost in the weeds. And then, what are you going to make? You're going to make the money off the advertising or whatever, for a free site. Like it's going to have to be on there for years for people that put out 50, 100 grand to make a movie,
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going through an old Lloyd Kaufman interview, which he's in American Expendables, by the way. And I was asking about basically I told the story, someone was bragging to me online about how they had a $2 million budget for a sci-fi film. And I was like, I got a sinking feeling. I was like, you're fucked. Like it's too little money for it to really for a studio to take it seriously and for it to blow up.
Hmm.
And as an independent, there's just no way you're going to make back 2 million. I mean, that's crazy. You're
Yeah.
not going to make back 100,000. Forget about 2 million. At least if it was 10 million, you could get some, A-list performers and be able to put enough money into the effects or whatever.
Right.
Like how
Or
much?
if your intention is to be like a Sharknado type of thing, like it's completely over the top and camp, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
you might be able to pull it off with that.
Or if it was horror,
Hmm.
million
Hmm.
dollar horror, maybe if you got like Nick Cage in it or something, maybe you got a shot of, you took 1 million of that and gave it to Nick Cage to hire him.
Right.
Maybe you could make that work, but
I mean, Blumhouse has clearly made that known. I mean, the last two or three of their movies were in the range of like 10 to 14 million, and they've knocked it out of the park, you know?
yeah, I think they can do it. Places like that can do it, and A24 can do it because they are the studio system. They're tied directly in, and they
Hmm.
push things into theaters and make their money back.
Yeah.
The idea that you would make an independent film and then try to bring that in, you're going to get skinned alive. No
Yeah.
one's going to write you a check for Paramount or Universal. They're not going to write you a check for $2 million. It's not going
No.
to happen.
No.
So you're probably just going to sign some terrible deal and, never make back any money. But
Yeah,
anyway,
nobody wants to take a risk anymore. Nobody
yeah,
wants to take a risk anymore. And on some levels, I get it because, I mean, how much money in the early days of Netflix doing their own stuff, how much money did they just piss away at like all these projects that had promise and just boom, now it's, now they have a very specific uh, corporate pattern to the things that they do, supposedly. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they were just throwing 100 million around. 100 million there. It was insane.
Yeah,
Did Adam Sandler or Scorsese, just trying to basically recreate a film studio.
right.
It did work. I have to say, I didn't think it was going to work because it hasn't worked for any other streaming company. Like Disney's a bust. It still loses money.
Yeah. In fact, actually, I'll have to correct you there. I just saw an article 2 days ago that said they reported a quarter for the first time that they were in the black. Now, I don't know if that was, of course, that could be a fluff piece that's manipulated through other things or whatever. But
Oh, Disney? Oh,
yeah, yeah,
uh, yeah. No, I guess it's possible. Like, I think they started. Well, they did a number of things, right? People get Hulu now included with it, and then
yep,
they dropped. They have an ad tier now. Now it's like $2 a month, but there's ads in it. So maybe they kind of changed their platform to be more like Tubi or something.
yeah. Well,
Because
Amazon Prime, those videos now have a lot of them have advertisements in it, and I think that's just going to have to evolve into that space
I
because
think
it's unsustainable, dude. It's
you got to do it.
unsustainable.
Yeah. And I don't mind.
Um,
Like my favorite streaming site now is Tubi
yeah,
because they unabashedly put like 20, 30-year-old films, right up there, and they have old TV shows and stuff like that. And they're it's not, like I go to Netflix, I look at the offerings, they curate hard and they
mm,
put the movies that they offer, the new stuff. I'm like, no thanks, man. It's
mm,
all this weird shit that like no one watches. And
yeah, and it's multi layers. You got to dig to get to the stuff that you're really interested in, and I think that's an algorithmic problem. Like they're pushing, like you said, they're pushing an agenda of a certain catalog, part of their catalog, especially giving the stuff that they make themselves or the stuff that they purchase to promote as Netflix original at the top tier. And that may not be everything that somebody wants when they log on to the platform, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I should mention real quick, American Expendables eventually will be on Prime for free and Tubi for free,
mhm.
and it will also be a few other places freebie. But so those are very cool formats. But Tubi, I was just watching. We were talking about Rutger Hauer. I just watched a movie called Omega Doom. I'd never heard of this film, and I'm like a huge Rutger Hauer fan. And it's kind of like everyone's a robot, and they're it's kind of like a Western.
Yeah.
Sci-fi comes into this town, and they're all battling to find the secret cache of guns for the next war. Interesting. It
Yeah.
was definitely interesting. But Tubi just had it there. Like you just went under sci-fi. They just had, and I get the feeling that Tubi looks for deals. I get the feeling that they look at, hey, what is a popular film that people actually fucking like,
Hmm.
actor that people like, and they have a whole slew of films like that. I feel like they do not overpay. I have a feeling because Tubi's been profitable for a long time now.
Yeah. And they're a subsidiary of what studio again?
Fox. Yeah,
Okay.
Fox,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So they found a model that makes sense with ads and everything else. And ultimately it's like cable's going 360 and it's coming to these streaming sites. And then eventually people are going to consolidate because who wants 12 subscriptions at $10, $15 a month? You might as well have cable, you know?
Yeah, we just gotta hope as independent filmmakers that we don't get locked out.
Again, with the loss of physical media, there's no item to exchange for cash, right? Now we've got to push this idea, of this piece of art that we've put together on a virtual platform or platforms and find a way to monetize that in a way that we would have gotten before when we had an actual physical thing to sell to people. And yeah, granted, let's be truthful about this. There still are um faithful servants to that era that people still collect VHS tapes. People still collect, full LPs, in music and stuff. There's people out there that like that. Problem is, Tom, there hasn't been an equivalent replacement to that is as lucrative or more so for independent filmmakers. And so independent filmmakers have to find a different way to compensate themselves for their time when thinking about making projects like this. So you and I walk into these projects with the expectation that we're going to tell a story, and we don't even, I honestly, I don't think we do, but we don't even think about the monetization aspect of it because we're just trying to do good art. We're trying to tell a good story. We're trying to entertain, and we do that first and foremost. And I think that's super important for a number of reasons. But it doesn't support financially what we do. So that's a challenge, right? It's a challenge.
I think, there's a few things that I think of when with what you just said. Like we see now physical media is out of most of the major stores now. I think Walmart's hanging in as one of the last one. Greg from Fanzine reports about this. I think Target's pulled all their physical media potentially. Best Buy did, I know, a while back.
Right.
But I do think, there was this hope that DVD and Blu-ray 4K would become sort of the vinyl, have the sort of have the cachet of vinyl records. And I think that's actually true now. It's not that um it's not that it's like gangbusters and it's at levels that DVDs used to be like 10, 15 years ago, but you do have much like people who collect game cartridges and stuff like that, uh or rare books, right? You have
Hmm.
people who collect physical media, and from what I understand, there are more DVDs released now than there were even 10 years ago, but it's all small stuff. It's all independent
Right. Or
companies.
print on demand, right?
Yeah,
Like
print on
literally like
demand.
just
Yeah.
Just I want this movie, and you wait a little bit longer, but you end up getting it if you want the physical copy. That's the other. I mean, people don't want to lug stuff around anymore. You remember moving and you got to take your whole movie catalog with you? It's literally
Yeah.
like boxes and boxes of stuff. So I get that we're evolving past this like demand or desire to have all this physical stuff. Um, Unless it's something special, like somebody signed the cover box, or it's a limited edition, or it's something from overseas. Like that was a big thing with CDs back in the 80s and 90s. It was like, oh yeah, it's a Japanese import, blah blah blah. We never see it, never, you can't get this in the States. It's got to be, you're going to pay $50 for this thing,
Yeah.
and it's signed by everybody, blah blah.
I think that I am protective of my physical library. I think because of the squabbling streaming sites. If it's a movie that's really important to me, to have the physical copy on the shelf, just knowing it's there is really important. Because I don't, studios had their wish, or Silicon Valley, they would have you rebuy the same movie every year,
Right,
and
right.
watch it, So
Yeah, the obscure titles, like, I mean, I have a physical copy. I think it's standard definition, but I don't care, of Safe Men, you know.
I
But
like, yeah, safe.
but dude, I like, there's no guarantee I'm gonna find that somewhere to stream, you know.
No,
So
I absolutely love, we worked at a video store at that time period, I think, and
yeah, oh yeah,
we watched that movie Safe Men, and it was before all these people hit. I mean, the cast is insane. It's
yeah.
like, Rockwell's
Dinklage, you
Peter
know,
Dinklage, it's Paul Giamatti, it's
Sam Rockwell.
yeah, it's Incredible Hulk,
Oh
uh
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mark
Um,
Ruffalo, uh like even some of the surrounding cast,
Steve Zahn.
Harvey Firestein, and hilarious. Such a
Yeah,
good um
but unknown, relatively unknown, and even in the video store era, if they had one, maybe two copies on the wall, on the new release wall, yeah, you were lucky. And it was usually the thing that you grabbed on a Friday or Saturday when everybody else grabbed all the new releases. You're like, let's check this out. Let's see if this comedy's any good. It was hysterical. It was
oh yeah,
hysterical.
funny. I definitely think I was influenced by that movie, and Christopher Nolan's The Following and stuff like that,
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so American Expendables, it really delves into it looks at all the North American Pictures catalog, um, but it heavily concentrates on Tiger Claws 1 through 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then TC 2000.
Yeah. Yeah. A little martial arts focus, which
Yeah.
is fine. I mean, because that was really what was interesting. And a lot of us as teenagers and young adults gravitated towards during the mid to late 80s and 90s. Like that was the shit. That was like the cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that stuff. And just we were talking about the cover of TC 2000 was just like looked hot, I mean,
Yeah.
you knew it was kind of a Terminator ripoff. The guy, Billy Blanks with his glasses on, you're like, is that Wesley Snipes? Like there was a lot of like it's not quite this, it's that, but
Those huge like blackout glasses, right? Like the
yeah.
ones, honestly, I've seen that down here in Florida. Like that's getting a comeback. They say that like fashion goes 360 and comes
Yeah,
full around. It's absolutely freaking true. Like,
the big, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, what the that was from like the 80s and 90s. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. So funny. Or like it was the senior citizens would wear those things with the,
Oh yeah.
yeah. But anyway, um yeah, so but yeah, so American Expendables, yeah, it was interesting. We put it through the festival circuit. That is one thing that we do, even if we spend virtually nothing on the film. Uh, Tim and I will enter festivals. We'll enter typically about 30, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And I
Um,
think we've found over the years, I mean, you definitely have a savvy for finding the festivals that you think each individual film will resonate with, right? And um, that has added to some of the luck of how people have resonated with the films in the festivals. But also, it's the best bang for your buck as far as advertising for your film, because now if it's an official selection, it typically gets shown. So now you've got an audience to watch it. If you get an award, you get your laurels. So now you're pushing that on social media. People are seeing that there's some resonation. People are liking it, and it's legit. I mean, it's at a festival where people resonated with your film. So it gives credence and recognition to an independent piece of art and film that otherwise we wouldn't have the environment or the space to get that feedback, right?
Yeah, it absolutely pushes it into a new territory. It pushes it, doing a festival run for your film pushes it into the theatrical realm.
Hmm.
Now, the theatrical realm is pretty cut off for no budget filmmakers. Yes, you can try to rent out an individual theater and sell tickets that way, four walling, they used to call it. But that is very difficult. For much less money, sometimes no money, you can enter film festivals and you can get the same result. It's at the festival. Although if you do get into a festival, it is on you to try to tell all your friends and tell people online and try to get butts in the seats.
Hmm.
The festival may have some street cred as well, and that could bring people out as well. So you're basically having another entity try to push your film at the same time you are, and that means that you can go to the theater and sometimes there's 50, 100 people in the audience. That's incredible.
Yeah.
If you do that, you think of it in terms of what a studio would do. So if Tim and I enter 30 or 40 film festivals and we get into 20, what's fun to do is track which major cities you get into, you know, because you get into, but basically what I'm saying is that you could have a New York, LA premiere, you could have a premiere in Houston, in Cincinnati, and at the end of it all, if your movie premiered in 10 major cities through festivals,
That's a win, man.
that's
That's a
fantastic.
huge win.
Yeah.
What would it cost for us to go to New York, LA, San Francisco, Canada, Paris, all these different places,
Yeah.
rent out a theater, and then
Vancouver.
drum up enough people to come and watch it? I mean, you're talking tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in promotion
Yeah.
for a few grand at most. We can go through a festival circuit run and get the same effect, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge deal. And then from there, when you either you're approaching distributors, um, or you're self-releasing. For feature films, I still recommend a distributor, even if it's MVD, which is MVD is sort of like they're like a middle person, but they do revenue splits, so they're really good. But I think a distributor, they have the inroads. They can push you onto platforms that we were talking about that you may not be able to get onto. Uh,
Right.
so you're gonna be
Ultimately, you've got this handshake that already exists and you pay for it. So you don't make as much money, but how else you have no other way of getting on a platform. Or you could, but the the relationship building that you'd have to do to gain that, it's cost prohibitive and time prohibitive, I would think. You could be spending that time making more art and making more movies, and the price is that you just get a lesser cut. So get your movie out there. Go through an MVD.
yeah.
We're super excited to have it on platforms at this point. It's like I said, we're coming to the tail end of the festival run with the movie as well. So the timing is really good. Like I said, we're going to have it on Amazon. It's going to be on Tubi, right? You said Tubi, Amazon, and then eventually Tubi.
Eventually
Yeah, yeah.
Tubi, Freevee, it's gonna be on Fandango, it's gonna be on Prime, Amazon Prime. There'll be a paywall at first and then it'll rotate to free.
Hmm.
Network. It's on a few some cable things, some like pay-per-view kind of thing.
And we're opting, all this talk about physical media and everything and it going by the wayside. We're opting for a physical release too, are we not?
Yeah, we're looking into that. Actually waiting to hear back from MVD, and was in talks with another company, which was it seemed really promising. So yeah, fingers crossed. Maybe there'll be a physical release, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're looking forward to it. And we've got a couple other projects in the works in the background chasing this. One of them being, can we talk about it, Tom? Video
yeah, sure.
Dreams.
Yeah, yeah.
Video Dreams. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, sure. So Video Dreams is a look at sort of the origin of the middle class film movement in the United States, how it kind of blossomed out of cheap VHS video gear. There was some Super 8 communities, but that was really niche. So it was really kind of early VHS electronic that got teenagers, editing on two VCRs in their houses and stuff like that. But it is very personal. It involves a lot of the films that home video, little movies that Tim and I made for the course of the career, but over our career. But I think it is important because it's sort of pegged down by the background of how independent film changed in the 90s through the 2000s,
Yeah.
just cheaper nonlinear editing software and a sort of revolution of some sorts.
Yeah. I look at the phones that you and I have, even though I have an Apple product and you have an Android product,
I have a
and what you
Google,
can.
I have a Pixel.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
like, what you can do with those pieces of technology, like, are light years beyond the VHS and the standard definition stuff that you did with the camcorder and everything. It's like kids today, or I say that I sound old saying that kids today, um, they have no idea what the power they have in their hand. It's just amazing what you can do with such a fraction of the money that you needed before. I mean, 60 grand in the 80s for a low budget horror film was not unheard of, but you could buy a house with that. We think it's going to resonate with some folks out there that have been on a similar journey. And then if you haven't, you'll realize how much the industry has grown for independent filmmakers, and the opportunity today is so huge. It's just, how do you get it in front of people's faces? And again, what we're doing with the festival run, I feel like that's the best way we know right now. But as we're doing this, Tom and I are constantly looking for ways to innovate. And I think that's just the key, man. You want to stay relevant, you want to stay alive in this industry, you have to constantly pivot and be open to the fact that what you were doing a year ago may not work anymore, and it's time to move on.
Yeah. But yeah, but at the same time, make something that's true to you and that you truly believe in. And but there is the double-edged sword of it is a compromised art form because it's half for the audience and half for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's half commerce and it's half art. And so, you can't be ignorant to the audience's attention, so you just have to be very careful with pacing and with content to make something that you would want to see yourself, something exciting and interesting.
Right.
Show it to a bunch of people, do recuts. Most of my stuff I end up editing for a year. This one was a weird circumstance where we did some podcasts years ago, and then there was like 2 months of editing, like
Oh yeah, rapid pace
yeah,
finalization, which was
yeah,
great. Like that's unheard of for us. We'll usually hem and haw over say, yeah, is it ready? Is it done? And just, but I think any of that exploration, where I resonate with what you're saying, because especially with music, I've got a Dreamcore album coming out at the end of the month, and that's not a typical music genre that I play, but it's resonating in the zeitgeist of music right now. And I find that the best way for that stuff to work is to be as authentic as possible in your exploration of whatever it is. So, I'm exploring this genre. I may enjoy it enough to try to explore it and become better and go dive deeper into it. The same thing with the movies we make. Sometimes we explore something and we're like, yeah, that was probably enough. We're going to move on to something else. Or it's like, well, no. Are we done with, you know, the decline of physical media and cult films? Probably not. That's something that's going to resonate with us for a long time. But like, we'll take these little pockets and we'll take pauses and we'll move on to a different subject and focus in on like the North American films. Like just
Yeah,
hey, let's. Nobody's talking about these. Why don't we? Why don't we
yeah.
give these
No one's
people
talking
some
about
limelight?
no one's talking about it as a catalog and looking into that, and so let's do that. But then there's something in the back of your head like, oh man, I'd love to see it. I really think people would dig this, so you're
Hmm.
always thinking, you're trying to think multidimensionally. And the other thing too is, if you weren't doing that, if you just had the attitude, I'm gonna make this pop tune because that's what kids are gonna like. I'm gonna listen to the top 5 pop tunes out and I'm gonna rip those off, and you're not gonna be able to sustain that for long, because
Right.
it's not touching your soul. So
Right. Well, you might resonate and pick on a piece, or like one of the pieces may pop for people because you found the right algorithm, right?
yeah,
Um, but if your anima, like your essence isn't in it, if it doesn't resound with you, it doesn't resonate within you. Like I find that with music. There's times I'm putting together a compilation for a genre of music and I'm trying to get to a certain number on the album. And then, but there's like one or two tracks that I'm just like, they're not ready. And I don't know if they're ever going to be ready. I got to put them aside. Like you
yep.
can't force it, you can't
Yeah.
force it. Um,
As long as there's some truth to it, and then you can do the long haul, I think.
mhm.
That's and not to brag, but I've been making films for decades now, and Tim Coolidge he's about to hit song 700, right? You're getting down.
Soon.
So he writes royalty-free music that anyone can use in their podcasts or their featured films. And but basically you're hitting, yeah, you're hitting 700 very soon, and you're going to crack 1,000 next year. And it's like,
You heard it first. Tom's
yeah,
making me do that for next
yeah,
year.
and but it's I think those are the artists that are going to make it. Sounds trite, but if you never stop, you never fail, right? So it's like,
Right.
why am I a film director? It's because I'm still a film director.
Right. Well, and fail forward. Absolutely fail forward. I'm
Right.
going to a conference this week on online content creation and marketing, and there could be a ton of things I'm doing with my music that are just dead wrong. And that's fine. I am humble enough, and even though I'm going to be 50 next year, like the idea is, dude, I'm here to learn until I croak. Like I literally, if I'm doing something wrong or it's not getting my music into enough ears, it's not getting our films into enough ears or enough eyes and ears, then I absolutely am like, sure, great. Show me what's better, what's a better path. It's just because sharing your art with the world is like the ultimate gift, man. It's the ultimate gift. And if this resonates enough going forward where we can make a living out of it and do it full time, I absolutely would do that hands down 1,000%.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. So any of you out there who are want to do music or make films, just just keep cranking out the work. It will get better. There was a story, it was one of these podcasts. I think it was a former CIA guy, and he talked about there were two classes, right? It was an art class. One teacher said, I want you to make one perfect piece of pottery by the end of the semester.
Mm,
The other class said, I want you to make as many as possible. I want you to make the most amount.
hmm
And what's your prediction of who made the better pottery?
I would say the volume because
Yeah.
you literally just practice and fail forward until, you know, over and over and over again. Repetition's the mother of skill, man. So
Yeah, so don't try to make one perfect film or song. Try to make 100 songs.
yeah,
Try to make 1,000 songs. Don't try to make one perfect film. Try to make 100 films. And that's the only way. It looks like there's evidence to say that I've gotten better at what I've done in the last 10 years, and that is purely based upon um, making and putting stuff out there, even if you don't necessarily have the faith that it's a home run. Because we always say this, you just never know. You are not, you do not have a crystal ball, and you do not know what people will respond to.
yeah.
You never know. We should put it out there because someone, I mean, it happens all the time, right? You put an album out and your most popular track is not your favorite, right?
Right. Typically, that's absolutely the case, and it's not the most technically advanced or accomplished. Like I'll have a very technical and well well produced track, and I'd be like, that one resonates with me. I love it. And people are like, I like this thing. It's it creates the mood. It does the thing for horror. And I'm like, it was 3 patches, man. It's like a couple keys. Like I don't really, really.
That's the
That's
one.
the one. I'm like, hey, if that makes me $1 million, I don't care. I can keep making the stuff I like. So it's
Yeah.
like I don't care. It's like, but ultimately, it comes down to you can't choose what people like. You don't get to choose what people like. You get to keep making art and let people decide what they like.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And you'll put stuff out and you'll have your favorites. You'll think this
mm,
is excellent. You'll think this is okay. I doubt that you'll put something out where you're like, this is garbage. If it's garbage, don't put it out. Or
mm,
if it's on the, I would say if it's on the bubble, consider putting it out.
yeah,
Consider putting it out because part of you, some of you thinks there's something of value there, you know?
Bubble's usually overthinking, I think. Like
Yeah.
if you're on the edge of a blade, you've gone through the edit process so much that everything's kind of just smoothed over into this gray area, and you just have to master it, push it out, and move on. And I mean that between movies, music, a visual piece of art, everything, right? So, so where again, we've got a release date of the 12th
August,
midnight.
yeah, I think midnight the 12th, and then, so normal people, August 13th. I think that's right. So I think the two major ones, if you're online, are going to be Amazon Prime and then Fandango. Fandango at home's pretty cool. I think that is NBC Universal. So
Nice.
so all right, Tim. Well, hey, thanks so much for spending a little while with me and pushing American Expendables. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, keep an eye on our socials because again, those two platforms, it's going to come out on first, and as it's released on other platforms or in free venues and everything else, we'll let you know.
okay, yeah. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.